In this video, we're going to talk about giving credit to the text. So first thing I want to do is address a few questions that people have. Now remember, to give credit to the text, you can either use an author's last name or the title. Remember that it is very important that if you choose to use the author's name, that you include their last name. For instance, one of our articles is by Lauren Tarshis. And if you think about how many people you know with the name Lauren, there's probably 2 or 3 or maybe 4 people that pop into your mind. So notice how that wouldn't really give us an idea of who wrote the article. Tarshis, on the other hand, you probably can't think of very many people you know with the last name Tarshis. So this really narrows it down to that author. So very important to use at least the author's last name. You can use a first name as well as a last name if you want, but definitely at least use the last name. Next question some people have is, why use an author when you can just use a title? Well, the answer to that is either one is okay. So when you cite a text, remember you can either use the author's last name or the title. But the answer is most of the time the author's last name is a lot shorter than the title of the article. So you're just saving yourself time when you write, and when your reader reads your paper, it makes it less time consuming on the citation. So either one is fine, but the author is usually simpler to use. Last question we're going to address is, where do you find the author? Because sometimes it is hard to find the author of articles. So the first step is to look at the top of the article. A lot of times the author's right up top. If you can't find it there, then move to the bottom of the title. So first the title, and then look underneath, and a lot of times the author is underneath the title. If you can't find it there, then you can look at the bottom of the article. So you'd scroll all the way down to the last page and see if it's there. If there's no author there, then the author is probably unlisted. So if the author is unlisted, that means you do need to use a title to give credit to the text. So that being said, let's take a look at a few examples of articles, and we're going to try to cite them. So in this article here, I'd like to try to find the author. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm looking at the top of the page. I don't see anything. Here's my title. I don't see any author under the title. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the page. Normally you'd find an author right in this area down here, and I don't see any author here. So this is an example of an article where the author is unlisted. So I'm going to pretend that I have an assignment like the one that you're going to complete, and I want to cite this article, and this time I'm going to have to use a title. So I'm just going to open a Google Doc up real quick just so we have an example of how we would do this. Okay, so the first step is, in your interactive notebook, you should have a piece that looks like this. Okay, we're actually looking at this piece right here. So the first step is, since we're going to paraphrase this, we can use one of these sentence starters. So I'm looking at all these sentence starters. Now, of course, we can't use author states because, again, we don't know the author of this article. So I can choose any one of these that I want. And I think I'm going to choose the first one just for fun. So I'm going to put as stated in. Now notice how it says as stated in title of the text. We're not going to write title of the text because now we know the title. So we're going to go back to our article, and our title is as stated in e-cigarettes, what you need to know. And that's all you need. All right, for this assignment, this is one of the few times where you don't need a complete sentence, because all I'm really interested in is you using the sentence starter, and I'm also interested in you getting the correct information from the article. Let's take a look at another example. Now in this article, notice how I wrote the title up top, and I have an author here, and it's kind of covered up by this. Okay, and the actual author is Tarshis, Lauren Tarshis. It cut the S off. The reason I had to write this up here is because it had a cover page with a title and an author, and I didn't want to really print that off when we pass this article out because I wanted to save paper. So most of the time you won't see a title and an author handwritten. This is kind of a special case. So let's pretend I want to cite this, or I want to give credit to this text using the author. Because it does have an author, I want to go as short as possible. So I'm going to go back to my sentence starters. Notice I can use any of these really, but if I want to use the author, I'm going to focus on this bottom one. Of course, instead of saying the author states, I know the author's name, I'm going to say Tarshish states because that's the author's name. So I'm going to go back to my document here. I'm going to go Tarshish states, and then I'd be finished. Let's look at one more example. This example, I do want to look at a website. And the reason I want to look at this website is because if you take a look, I want to focus on the author. Notice how this website has two authors. We have Robert J. Morazzano and Deborah J. Pickering. When you have two authors, you need to give both authors credit. So I'm going to cite this by using the authors, and I'm going to go with the same sentence starter. So I'm going to go with the same bottom one right here. But instead of saying Tarshish states, this time I'm going to use the last name. I'm going to say Morazzano and Pickering state, and that'd be it. So let's take a look at your assignment. So when you log on to Google Classroom, let's go back to that. You're going to find an assignment called Give Credit to the Text. And of course, if you're watching this video, you're probably already there, and you click Open. And first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on this bottom piece because this is your homework assignment that you're going to be writing on. It has your name on it. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to Google Classroom. You're going to click on this top piece. And what this has is the articles. So notice how the articles are labeled. So we have article 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we look at our assignment, and if you want to learn how to do this window snap, notice I have two windows open. Just ask me and I can walk you through that real quick in class, but it's really handy for an assignment like this. Okay, so notice how we have article 1. That means I need to click on article 1, and notice how it still says article 1 up top just to reassure us. And it says our directions is using one of the sentence starters from your interactive notebook, give credit to this article by using the author's name. So we're going to be using the author's name. So I'm going to go back to my interactive notebook page. And I don't have a lot of options here for using the author's name, and we will talk more about that later on when we start writing because we're going to think of synonyms for states, and we're going to think of other examples we can use. But for now, we can just go with this. So instead of author states, I need to figure out the author of this article. So if I scroll down, remember I'm going to start up top. I don't see an author there, so I'm looking at my title here, and lo and behold, right after the title, there's the author. So I'm going to put Ron states, and that's all I need. And then I can move on to step 2. Okay, notice how direction 2, notice in green up here it says article 2. So that means I need to switch articles. So I'm going to click my back button, and then I'm going to double click article 2, and notice how article 2 is right here.